Right, where are you going?
Oh, I'm currently sat at Cadiz station, and it's early o'clock in the morning, as Lawrence would say, and I'm off to Cordoba.
Right. Proof. And we're wide awake, surprisingly enough, because we went to bed at 9 o'clock, I do believe. And we fell asleep.
I know. It was closer to 10 o'clock.
Oh, right, close. Well,
Yeah, but it did surprise me that you fell asleep.
Yeah.
I thought I'd get more argument from you.
Yeah, no, I fell asleep. I was tired because I'd been swimming it was exhausting.
And we did another 1,000,000 steps yesterday.
Right. So exciting. And look, breakfast.
What's the calorie count on my breakfast? 230 calories.
There you are, 213 calories. Well, we burnt that off, didn't we? Already.
Already.
We've just walked 10 miles. Yep, we're off on our last stop, Cordoba. Right, and what are you doing in Cordoba?
And what am I doing in Cordoba? I'm waiting to be served a croissant and coffee for my breakfast. What I'd really like at the moment, though, is a bed so I can go to sleep because we had to get up so early this morning. And we haven't sort of turned on that tourism mode button yet, have we?
No, we're not feeling it, are we?
No, we're not, no. I mean, check-in is at 2 o'clock, so we've got 4 hours. And then I think we'll go to our room.
Yeah, I think so.
But we can't do that for 4 hours. No.
I'm sure you've noticed a theme running through our home movies. That is our content. We have to get the terminology right. We look at museums, art, architecture and food and other stuff. But here's our visit to Cordoba's Archaeological Museum. And it's housed in the palace of the Paez de Castillo family. And they must have been some rich dudes. Anyway, if you don't come away from this museum knowing everything there is to know about the history of Al-Andalus, well, you're just not trying. It traces history from the hunter-gatherers to the Romans to the Visigoths and then the Moors, and probably a bit more as well. Anyway, it's well worth the visit and highly recommended. And for weary touristas like ourselves at this stage, it's everything's beginning to get to be a museum too far. But not to worry, we've still got the building that's classified as the most beautiful building in the entire universe by the tourist guides. And I'm sure that you will find that very interesting. But there you go. That's the Archaeological Museum of Cordoba. Well worth a visit, especially if you're wide awake. Everyone comes to Cordoba to visit the Mezquita or Grand Mosque. You can see its walls on the right there. But before we go there, we're going to look at the Rio Guadalquivir. This was central to the life of Cordoba, and it is spanned by the Puente Romano, which originally formed part of the Roman road. We went to another museum here, and we got a bit of a taste of the golden age of Cordoba, where Jewish, Muslim and Christian scholars flourished. You'll even find Englishmen who came to study here. And in fact, the first translation of the Quran into Latin was done by an Englishman, Robert of Ketton, in 1143. And strangely, he was Archdeacon of Pamplona. so he had quite a career. He was also one of the translators of Euclid. So, these English get everywhere. The Grand Mosque is considered one of the world's greatest Islamic buildings. The great courtyard is filled with orange trees which give off a rather pleasant fragrance. In 756 AD, Abdul ar-Rahman I established himself as Emir of Al-Andalus, founding the Umayyad dynasty, and started building the mosque with leftovers of earlier Roman buildings. And inside, there's not only the great hall of arches and pillars, but also a great big Christian church plonked incongruously in the middle in 1523 by the then Catholic rulers, much to the annoyance of the locals who had left it with its Islamic flavourings since the Christian conquest of 1236. So, that's 300 years of Christian rule, and they quite liked it the way it was. And even the king in 1523 found this somewhat jarring. But that's politics for you. It takes little account of good taste. So where are you?
Where am I? Well, I'm still in Cordoba, and I'm stood outside the walls of the Where am I?
Alcazar.
Alcazar. I'm stood
Alcazar.
outside the walls of the outside. I'm stood outside the walls of the Alcazar, and it's blazing hot. And I discovered yesterday that Cordoba was the hottest city in Spain, or the hottest city in Andalusia, one or the other.
Spain.
Spain.
In Europe.
I think that's true, don't you?
Yes.
Feel the gas coming on.
He was not unwise, he was not stupid. This was the palace of the king. And that part, the seminaries of St. Pelagius, the Bishop Palace, and the diocesan library are located in the place in which used to be built the former Alcazar, as a gift offered by the king.
Alcazar means palace, and it became one of the primary residences of Isabella and Ferdinand. Originally it had been the Roman governor's residence and the customs houses. The mosaics that you can see, they were discovered in the 1950s and are 3rd century Roman. This was later taken over by the Visigoths and then the Moors. And in fact, they actually constructed the palace and turned it into the administrative centre of the Caliphate of Cordoba. Though that didn't last long, because a new seat of government was built outside the city at Madinat al-Zahara, and we'll go to that place later on. In 1228, Alfonso XI of Castile, he built the president's structures and kept little of the original Moorish ruins. And in 1482, it was taken over by the Inquisition. And there's supposed to be, they supposedly tortured to death thousands of people over the next 300 years. Though they kept very bad records, so we don't really know how many. And it was here that Christopher Columbus had his first meeting with Isabella and Ferdinand. The Jewish quarter was, as you might expect, the area where the Jews lived from the 10th to the 15th century. The area was walled off after the Reconquista, ostensibly to protect the Jews, but of course also to keep them in. Under the Umayyad Caliphate from the 8th to the 11th century, Cordoba rivaled Damascus and Baghdad for its intellectual and economic achievements. But its power declined and it was integrated into Castile in 1236. Even so, in the 12th century, we see Averroes and Maimonides emerge as intellectual heavyweights. They agreed upon a lot of things, which is surprising because Averroes was a Muslim and Maimonides was Jewish, but they were very keen on Aristotle. And of course Maimonides, he codified a lot of Jewish laws. He was the personal physician to Saladin, and although born and educated in Cordoba, mostly worked in Morocco and Egypt.
We're at the Medina al-Thra, or something like that.
Al-Thra.
Al-Thra.
Medina al-Thra.
It's the palace of Abdul Rahman III. He built this in 939. That's his grand palace on the outskirts of Cordoba, which was also his city at the time. And it lasted about 70 years because then there was a lot of infighting between the other potential rulers of the place, and the thing just fell apart, and then it was looted. And you can find bits of pillars and arches and tableware from this palace scattered throughout Spain. It was called recycling, not pilfering.
Okay, what are you doing?
We're in a restaurant called Tuana, which is a Mexican restaurant right next to our hotel, and it's not for someone with extra sensory sensitivity, because it's brightly coloured, totally brightly coloured, totally lit up with all sorts of weird stuff. And it's yeah, you know. We've just had a shot of tequila and tomato sauce and chili flakes.
And is this like Bailey's cream?
And instructions on how to consume it. Although we've ended up with this. What were we supposed to do with this?
Oh, don't know whether that was part of it or not.
Yeah. Anyway, this restaurant has lots of tables. It opens at 8 o'clock. It's right next to the hotel, so we thought, okay, lazy so-and-sos, we'll just pop down there, because we've been fighting with Spanish food so far, and this seemed an interesting option, so let's see.
It does look like an infant school, though. We're nearing the end of our visit to Spain. We travelled between the cities by train, which is a very convenient way of doing it, especially if you're looking to make a cultural tour. Here we are at the Piano Palace. It was built after a guy called Rai Fernandez bought up a group of medieval buildings and did a bit of a renovation job on them in 1425. And then it was acquired in 1492 by Gomez Suarez de Figueroa. It passed on to his nephew in 1545, but in 1561 that nephew's daughter sued him and took possession of it, and so on. It's quite a soap opera. And each owner added to it, and by the 18th century it had become a house full of treasures. And by 1873 it had passed into the hands of the Marquises of Viana, hence the name. And it was opened to the public in 1980.
I've been in a garden. I've been in one of many sub-gardens in this, 1,200 square metres of garden. And it's just beautiful.
Yeah, not a lawn in sight.
Not a lawn in sight, no. We can stand in the shade, we can hear the birds sing, we can smell the flowers. It's just wonderful.
And look, lemon trees. At least I think they're lemons, or they're oranges. They're oranges, aren't they?
Let's see what
Yeah, but they look yellow to me. And so ends our long trip. So, let's finish this off with a taste of flamenco.
Thank you.